We're directing our presentation to Mali students. For those who are listening in, the Mali students are at this level of presentation in their writings. And the assignments that you all are given in my classes, we have about 5 other Mali teachers. The most advanced classes, you are researching verses on your own and using the sources in writing reflections and commentaries on the verse. And I would have to say you all are choosing some very good and interesting verses that you are doing the work on, and you're reading, researching the sources are getting better, even though you've only been doing it for a little while. So we're going to look at some of the sources today. Raga is a dictionary source we want to take a look at. It's a Quranic Arabic dictionary. And we have King Fahd. All of the classes pretty soon will be doing King Fahd. It's very easy reading tafsir of the Quran. And Ibn Kathir, he's well known. It's not difficult reading, and it gives you historical references to the meaning of the verse. And then perhaps maybe I will take a look at Ibn Arabi on the verse. Ibn Arabi I would define as the religious philosopher, more or less like the Sufi thinker, or some even refer to him as the father of Sufism in terms of religious philosophy. So maybe we'll take a look at Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi is a little more thought-provoking than the others. And inshallah, we'll see how Ibn Arabi thinks. So let us begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ma'ashara al-jinni wal-insi in istata'atum and tanfudhu min aqtari as-samawati wal-ardi fanfudhu la tanfuduna illa bisultan. Now, I have the translation here that I would prefer that you take a look at, Abu Faris. It's not one translation better than the other. We're reading Arabic, so don't worry about the translation. It's to keep us on the same page between students and myself. And it gives you an idea about the words. They're not bad translations. We don't have what we would consider so much as a bad translation. But you're going to get more from the Arabic than you do from any translation when you learn to read the Arabic for yourself. There's a lot that cannot be passed from the Arabic to the English, because the Arabic language, Quranic Arabic language, is too rich and broad and eloquent for you to really translate it into another language and get the same meaning and picture that the Arabic is giving you. But you want to have an idea about the words. That's where you want to start out, where we're at now as students in Mali. So he says, Ya ma'ashara is old company. Ya is old. It's a particle of a vocative particle. Oh, you're calling someone. Company ma'ashara. Ma'shara. And then company of jinn and men. Al-jinni wal-insi. So this would be the word for company. This is jinn, second term possessive. And this is men. If. It's the ta'atum, if you have power, and that is not translated, it will be two. This will be two. Tanfudu, to penetrate. Tanfudu, penetrate. This is the word we're going to be looking at. One of them. Men authority. Authority is regions. As-samawati, that's heavens. Al-ardi is earth. Then, he says, fad. This fad is then in unfudu. Then penetrate. Them, he adds, them is not there. Then penetrate. You will never, he says, la tanfudu, you will never penetrate. Illa, except be sultan and with, and he put sanction with our sanction. Illa be sultan. So that's the idea. You want to take the translation that gives you an idea about each Arabic word. You want to start there. Then you go back and look at each word. Look at each word and read each word grammatically. Read each noun grammatically. This is a noun. Why does it end in fatah? This is a noun. Why does it end in kasra? Why does this one end in kasra? This is a verb. Look at your nouns first. Look at all your nouns. Why does this noun end in kasra? This is a noun. Why does it end in kasra? Why does this one end in kasra? This is a verb. This is a noun. Why does it end in tanween kasra? Look at your grammar rules for that. Look at that. Do the nouns first. Then, if you do the nouns and you go by the chart, you have 5 sheets. You're looking at the nouns. There's nouns. There's the sheet for the nouns, rules of the nouns. Go by the sheet. On the sheet, it will say the first fundamental rule is if it ends in a fatah, it's related to a verb. It's influenced by a verb or related to a verb. You go back and look for the verb. Or there are particles that influence the noun to end in fatah. If you don't see a verb, look and see if there's a particle. So this particle is influencing it to end in fatah. If it ends in kasra, it's influenced by a preposition. There's 2 rules for the genitive, for ending in kasra. One is the object of the preposition, and one second term possessive. Look to see what comes before it. If it's a noun before it, then most likely it's the second term possessive. Then you have another noun following it with y between it, so it ends in kasra because it's a follower of sequence to this one. You go down, this noun ends in kasra. What comes before it is a preposition, object of the preposition. This noun does not have alif lam. This one does. It ends in kasra because it's the second term possessive to this. Then this one ends in kasra. What comes before? Where is not a preposition. Where is a conjunction of sequence, we could say. So this will be a follower of sequence to this one. It ends the same way the noun it follows. This one ends in tanween kasra. What comes before it is the preposition be. It's the object of the preposition. So learn to read grammatically and then see the function of the grammar. Then you have verbs. The one thing you want to do with verbs is know their conjugation and know their form. It's going to give you a little more insight into what's being said. Istata'tum, so this looks like It could be Sata'a. If it's Sata'a, it's form 8. If it's seen in a tab form 10, then there must be a 6 letter dropped. You have to look at it. What form is it? This verb, Tunfadu, what form is it? Look like form 1. It begins with it has a tab, but there's a fatha on it, and Dhamma's on the middle, so it's form 1. It can't be form 4, because form 4 present tense will begin with the Dhamma. It's going to be 1 or 4. Here are your 3 letters for your root. Look for your 3-letter root and then see what's added. The 3-letter root, see what's added. This letter is this. Aleph is added. It's going to be the command. Still form 1. It's the command. And this is the full form 1 present tense. Tenfuduna, you masculine plural. So look at your verbs. They're form 1, so except for this one, figure out which one it is by looking it up. And that's how you will do your verbs. See if your verb affects the noun by being the object of the verb. But we don't have a noun ending in fatha for the verb to have an object in terms of a noun. If you can do that much, that's good in the state you're in now. And see the function. The greater function you want to see is the nouns that end in fatha. Study those rules on your sheet of the nouns that end in fatha, because you're going to get a little more from the reading. The other 2 rules, the nominative and the genitive, you're not going to get as much as you will the fatha. The fatha, you're going to see words affecting words very strongly. Okay, that's a quick lesson on grammar. Now, let's go to Raga. So, Raga, the first word, nafadha, we have an idea of this word. The idea of this word is nafadha, your root letters. The idea we have is penetrate. Penetrate. So we say nafadha as-sahmu. If we put the dhamma on here, we'll say the sahmu nafadha, because this will be the subject of the verb, reading it grammatically. So the sahmu nafadha. We're not going to translate nafadha. We have an idea about it, but we're not going to translate it. We're going to let Ragib, the dictionary, tell us about what nafadha is. Let the Arabic tell you about the Arabic. Don't go in Hand's word. Pick a word out and get lost. Let's let this dictionary tell us. So a sahmu is the arrow, an arrow, like a bow and an arrow. So the arrow, nafadha, fi ramiyati, fi ramiyati, so in the shooting. That's how I'm translating. The arrow, nafadha, in the shooting. Now we may want to know a little more. He's giving you a sentence, how it's used in a sentence. Nafadha asamu fi ramiya. Where, then he's going to say, where miskabu, fi el-khashabi. So el-miskabu is the drill, the bore, like someone is boring or drilling something. That's miskabu, the drill. Fi el-khashabi, in the wood. So drilling in the wood, either when kharika, it makes a hole. When it pierces, or we can say it penetrates. So kharika is going to help us understand nafadha. It's the drilling in the wood when it penetrates ila jihati, to al-ukhra, to another side. To the other side, or another side, to the other side. So kharika helps us understand the idea of nafadah. So the arrow, nafadah, in the shooting, meaning what? It goes, it penetrates in the shooting, or the drilling, we could say, the drilling in wood when it kharika. When it kharika, when it makes a hole to the other side. This gives us the idea of nafadah. Okay? Does it sound like penetrate? Yes. But let the Arabic show you. And the words I'm doing now, these words are not, the meanings are not that difficult to see. Now the other word we have the word aktari. Min al-aktari. So we have qatara, and we said aktari meant regions. We say regions, aktari. So let's see what we have here. We have from Ragib. He's going to say al-kutru, which is the internal noun, al-kutru, al-janibu. Al-kutru, al-janibu. Al-kutru is al-janibu. Al-janibu is, we could say al-janibu is the sides of something. So al-kutru is the sides. Well, jum'uhu aktaru, and its plural is aktaru, which is in the verse, the plural. So this is the side, we could say. The side of something, or the other side of something, keeping the context. And then salata from sultan is as-salatatu, which we will not translate. As-salatatu, that's the word. At-tamakkunu min al-qahri. We had this word before. It's the ability of coercion, we could say. The ability of coercion, we would say. Having the power of coercion. That's as-salatatu, is the power of coercion. Yes. So this idea, so you would go back in the verse, and now we will read it in terms of the sides. We would say to penetrate from the sides, the other sides of the heavens and the earth. Then penetrate. Oh, man, if you are able, that you can penetrate from the sides of the heavens and the earth. Meaning, if we can start on one end, like drilling, and go to the other end and come out on the other side of the sides of the heavens and the earth. Fanfudu, then penetrate. But you will not be able to do it except by having the power of coercion. Yes. Very strong, forceful power. Now, that's Ragib. Let's go a step further and let's look and see what King Fat is saying. So what I have done here, I've taken King Fat. Let me remove this, or let me put this up higher so you can see the comparison. This is King Fat. I'm going to move it up so you can see the comparison of the verse with King Fat. For the students that are on this level. If you want to look and see the words that are in the verse, you already have the translation for. You want to keep the translation as you find them in the tafsirs. Just keep the translation. It'll still work out in context. And will make it easier for you as beginning students. That way you won't get lost. You have an idea of what we're talking about from the verse. So King Fahd is going to be talking about the verse. Just try to have an idea of where he's at and talking about the verse. So he says, Ma'ashara al-jinni wal-insi, we already translated that. We've translated that. So just keep the same translation, O company of jinn and men, if. Now, kadaratum, he must be talking about if it's tatatum. Kadaratum is tatatum. If you have the ability, if you have the power, kadar, we say power, ability, power, qadar, ala and nifadi. And nifadi, we said penetrate, so let's keep penetrating. If you have the power upon penetrating, if you do it literally. And it's okay to read Arabic literally first, even if it doesn't make sense in English. Read every word literally. Just read it literally. Then you can go back and make it make sense in English. In doing so, you may lose a little bit here and there, but it's okay. Min amri Allahi. Min amri Allahi. So we're still talking about istita'atum. Tanfudu min amri Allahi wal hukmihi. From the command of Allah, we could say, and his authority, his control, his governance. This is the amr. Amr is also control, the command, the governance, the laws, the decisions. This all in this word hukm. This word hakana, hukm. So you have from that, if you can penetrate from this, the control of Allah and his authority. Haribina is escaping. So escaping, right? Escaping, those who are able to escape. Escaping men, so this is still talking about penetrating. We're still talking about penetrating. Men, here's this men, trying to stay with where we're at in the verse. Atrafi as-samawati wal-ard. Here we say Atari as-samawati wal-ard. Here we say Atrafi as-samawati wal-ard. Now what's Atrafi? Atrafi is the end, the tip, the outermost of the heavens and the earth. As we say, the janibi, the side, the other side. We're going to, on this side of the skies, we want to penetrate all the way to the other side, which man hasn't been able to do yet. We don't know where the sky ends. Where does the skies end? So we're talking about penetrating to the other side. And we're talking, right now, we're talking physically. We're just talking physically right now. And the earth. To penetrate, to drill from this side of the earth all the way to the other side of the earth. And come out on the other side, like a piece of wood. Come out on the other side, at the Rafi. To the outermost. I'm just giving a picture now of the language. Then faf'alu, then do. Faf'alu, then do it. If you are able to do this, escape the outermost. And there's other things that could be said and how this could be read and understood. If you can get beyond the laws, the laws, Emron, from the Emron, Hukmun, from the laws that's governing, the laws of gravity, there are other laws that are all governing laws of this creation, the governing forces. You have forces of nature that's part of the governing sources. Can you overcome all governing sources to penetrate your way to the other side? وَلَسْتُمْ خَارِدِينَ, and you do not have the power. You are not powerful. Upon that, if I do a little, you're not powerful. You are not powerful for that. إِلَّا بِقُوَّةٍ وَحُجَّةٍ, except by strength. We could say strength and power again, another word. وَحُجَّةٍ, and hujjat is like having, we would say, authoritative source, proofs, hujjah. You would say proofs, arguments, or in this context, authoritative source. You would need that. Then he says, now this is, we're talking about Sultan now. This illah here is this illah. Just kind of look and watch, go back. So this Sultan is quwwatin wa hujjatin. This is Sultan. B, that's the B. Illa B, quwwatin wa hujjatin. See, just watch, go back and look, and then reflect. Go back and look, see what it's saying, and you have other words to reflect upon. Sultanan, you have from the dictionary. You have quwwatin, you have hujjatin. These words here, you reflect on these different words here that gives you a better reading, a clear reading of Sultan. And you have qahrin. You have the ability of qahrin, quwwatin, hujjatin. Just take your time and look back and see what words is he using to define what part of the Quran. That we call a tafsir. Tafsir only means he's giving an explanation of the Quran. He's explaining it. Sometimes they just give an explanation in terms of what is it saying. They may not get a lot into what it means. What it means, like we'll see in Ibn Arabi, inshallah. They just, what is it saying? It's just, that's all he's doing. And using Arabic words really to define Arabic words. So to learn to read the Quran, which is our goal, we have a goal to read the Quran with comprehension. And the steps in achieving this goal is to learn how to use Arabic to define Arabic. It's better than trying to use an Arabic English dictionary. It will not be as clear. When you look at Arabic defining Arabic, then the more you read Arabic defining Arabic, the more your vocabulary will grow. And the understanding of your reading will grow. Your comprehension will grow. Yes. Well, Amrin and also Amrin. So Amrin is also a part of Sultan. Amrin, Quwwatin, and Hujjatin. They're all a part of the meaning of Sultan. Min Allahi. It's from Allah Ta'ala. Yes. Now, it will stop there. He just added a note here to say, وَأَنَّا لَكُمْ, and how is that for you? أَنَّا لَكُمْ ذَلِكَ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَمْلُكُونَ, and you do not own, possess, have the power, بِأَنفُسِكُمْ, for yourselves, to yourselves, in terms of benefit, naf'an wa darran, benefit and harm, no harm. You don't have the power to own the power for your own self in terms of benefiting your own self or harming your own self. But this verse is not here to say you can't do it. This verse is here to challenge you to do it. And you can do it, but you have to have eminent min Allah. You have to have bikuwatin, wa hujjatin, wa eminent min Allah. Yes. So, and we see man, physically speaking, we see how man is trying to go out and reach the outermost tip of the skies. And he's drilling in the earth. Yes. And in both, I'm sure there's benefit, perhaps, and there's harm. So now let's look at, that was King Fat. Now all of the students have to learn to translate King Fat. If you can translate King Fat, which I am saying is easy reading, then you're on your way to translate other sources. Always keep in mind the other sources that we use, now tafsir sources in Arabic. All of the Arabic that we're looking at is related to the Quran. We're not learning or teaching Arabic conversation. We're not teaching you to read Arabic books. We're not teaching Arabic poetry. All of the Arabic thus far relates to the Quran. Because our goal is to learn to read the Quran with comprehension. So this is where we're at. Let's look and see what others are saying about the verse to help us comprehend the verse. So now, Ibn Kathir is a well-known tafsir, and it's probably because it's easy to read, it's historical references, easy to read, and they're not philosophical. When I mean easy, they're not philosophical, they're not applied to any social event other than the time of the Prophet, the President, peace be upon him. So you don't have to have a great knowledge. You already know what's going on with the verse. You don't have to have a knowledge of the people and other things. It helps to know about the Arabs and what have you, but you have to remember the Quran is revealed language. It's not the language of the Arab on the street. It's revealed language. Yes, it's Arabic language. The Prophet was an Arab, but it's revealed language. So without having to grow up in Arabia as a Bedouin to say you can't read the Quran and understand it, that's not true. Allah created us to learn languages. He created us that we can learn each other's languages. You don't have to grow up in England to know English. We can learn languages. Yes, as human beings. So now we have the verse, يَا مَعْشَرَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ إِنِ اسْتَطَعْتُمْ أَن تَنْفُذُوا مِنْ أَقْطَارِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ فَانْفُذُوا لَا تَنْفُذُونَ إِلَّا بِسُلْطَانٍ. That is to say, لَا تستطيعون So if we see this word here now, we already had the word up here. Testa. Test. Istatatum. Test. Tati'una. So it happens. We added a yeah here. The yeah was not up here. There's a yeah here. So now we'll say this word here has 3 root letters, ta, yeah, and ayin, and this could be interchangeable with the waw or the aleph. And then we added a sin and a tag. So now we would say, go back, say it's form 10, because we added the sin and a tag. And this tag was added for you masculine plural. Ta'una is you masculine plural. So I'm showing you the same word. I was going to let you do it on your own, and I was going to ask you in the class, but it's right here. Some things I'm going to ask you in the class. I want you to sit and watch and listen. Just sit, watch, and listen. Retain what you can. Then I may ask you something in the class to see how well you retained it. Without homework, after today, you listen, those of you listening today, you just listen today. Pay attention and just see how much you're able to retain when I ask you in the class. And we'll keep practicing that. It'll let me know how well you can now hear, see, and read Arabic and retain what you hear, see, or read. Because that's going to get better. That you'll start retaining, especially words that I put emphasis on, like tanfulu. If I put emphasis on this word, then let's see how well you remember it in a couple of days. But not to go through homework, not to stretch the mind, not to get a headache over it. Just keep watching and listening. Tune in, keep watching and listening. If you don't have a chance to watch and listen, go to the recording. Go to the recording. It's going to be on YouTube. It's on Facebook. And then look at it. If you just do it one time, you don't have to study it unless you're interested. So here, test that. So we won't change it. It says, you are not able, haraban. You are not able, haraban, to escape. You're not able to escape min amrillahi wa qadrihi. You are not able to escape from the command of Allah, from the power of Allah, from the authority of Allah, wa qadrihi, and we could say for qadrihi, his divine decree. That's another word for qadr. I mean, you can't get around. You cannot get outside of the authority of Allah and his divine decree. You're not able to do it. So what part he's talking about here, he's talking about having the ability, istata'tum, with sultan. بل هو محيط بكم لا تقدرون على تخلص. And he is, or because he is, محيط, encompassing. He encompasses you. He is encompassing. He knows all. We will say he's fully knowledge of you, that you are not able, you don't have the power upon takhallusi, upon the freedom to escape man hukmihi, from his governance, the governance of the creation. You don't have the freedom to penetrate because of his governance. It's his governance. It's his laws. The law of gravity is part of his laws. The force, the natural force of gravity, because we give it a name now. We study it. We learn about gravity. I think it was Newton. We give credit to Newton about gravity, this force in nature, and what it does, its effect. Now that's part of Allah allowing you to learn about that law. That's part of the hukmah. That comes from Allah. So you're not free. You're not free. You have to learn gravity. You have to learn the law of gravity just to get out into the skies. You won't get too far if you don't understand the law of gravity. This is all part of Allah's hukm. أَيْنَمَا ذَهَبْتُمْ أُحِيطُ بِكُمْ. Wherever you go, I know fully. What you know, I know you fully know. I'm encompassing all, comprehending all. وَهَذَا فِي مَقَامِ الْحَشْرِ. And this is in the place or the station of al-hashr, the station of gathering. Now he's going to make a hint here. This is Ibn Kathir. And we'll get a little more from Ibn Arabi. This is in the station of Hashr. And this place of gathering is al-malaikatu or al-malaikati, the angels muhdakatun. The angels are enclosed. And these angels, we have, we can say we have defined. There's so much to say. I'm trying to say a little by saying a lot. Are forces in nature. We're not talking about beings flying around with wings and what have you, like you get in the book. We're not talking kindergarten here. These are the forces. Forces, the governing forces. You have the word Malik in it, Malakat. The governing forces in nature are surrounding, and these are the high, strong governing forces that are surrounding surrounding the creatures. Sab'a sufufin. Sab'a sufufin, seven layers, 7 rows. Min kulli, from every side. So this is the maqam al-hashr. This is the maqam al-hashr that the angels, they are these forces. There are 7. And we know there are 7 heavens. There's something to reflect on here. They are let's say these forces are from every side. These governing forces. That's all part of the hukm. They're on every side. So you have to penetrate them. Yes, like you see a crowd, hasha. You see a crowd of people, you want to get to the other side, you have to penetrate them. As soon as you penetrate one layer, there's another. As soon as you penetrate another, there's another. These forces. So if you're going to penetrate the 7 skies. Now, I don't know the beginning of one sky and the end of another. I don't know. It's not something that you read every day in the science books, but it's something, and maybe some scientists have, but maybe they haven't because you have to get to the end. But we say there are 7 skies. So as you penetrate one sky and penetrate the congregation of the governing forces, then you have another sky to penetrate. Then you have another one to penetrate. Soon as you get through one corridor, there's another corridor. And you're trying to get to the end, to the outermost. This is what's coming to mind from just reflecting on what's being said. To the outermost part. The same, perhaps, with the earth. There are layers. Once you penetrate one layer, there's another layer. And it may require more knowledge, greater instrument to penetrate, because according to the law, just you in this bone, flesh and bone, is not going to be able to jump through the skies. You're not going to fly through the skies because of the hukmu, because of the laws, the governance of nature, telling you you're not flying out past the sun, just jump like Superman, put a cape on and jump. No, it's going to take knowledge. It's going to take knowledge. It's going to take power. It's going to take authority. You're going to have great authority to overcome the forces. Yes. Now, Allah is not saying this to us just for play. He's not revealing this verse just for play. And we're reflecting on the verse through the eyes of Ibn Kathir right now. Raga, King Fahd, and others. Then someone may have the curiosity to say, let's see then. Because we've already done well with the airplane. Let's create an instrument that will take us further into the heavens than the airplane will. Now we're able to create something to take us so far. Let's create something that will take us further. Let's create an instrument that we can look out, way out into the universe. But we still haven't created an instrument that will get us all the way to the end. We haven't created a machine that will take us to the end, an instrument that will take us to the end. Yes. But we have that curiosity. Where does the curiosity come from? It could have been in man all the time, or Allah is revealing to man. Man may have this thought, and Allah is revealing to man that yes, you can go out there. Yes, you can. But you have to understand there are forces. There are laws and forces that are operating that you're going to have to understand. So there's a lot that goes into it. Calculations. Other things. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm not the scientist to give it all to you. Perhaps one of our young students will take an interest in aerospace dynamics or what have you. Just this verse. And become an astronaut, so forth and so on, the scientist that sits and say, okay, let's see if I can take what man already have calculated and improve upon the calculations, improve upon the instruments, improve upon it, that will get us a step further, just out of the curiosity of this verse that have pricked my mind. Let's just see if we can verify this verse. فَلَا يَقْدِرُ أَحَدٌ, and no one is able, عَلَى الذِّهَابِ, upon going, إِلَّا except بِسُلْطَانٍ. I that say except بِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ. You see, So here is another source defining this sultan as Amru. So King Fahd said it, and Ibn Kathir said it. Now, King Fahd comes after Ibn Kathir. Let's see, what is Ibn? He has Amri min Allah. So he comes after Ibn Kathir. So it gives us an idea about Amrin. Yes. Amrin. And the Amrin belongs to Allah first. We say, obey Allah. We had this, I think, in a presentation last week. Obey Allah and obey His messenger and obey those who are given the Amr. We say the Amr over you. Yeah, you may have some authority over someone, and your authority may be very small. And you have authority over people smaller than you. Okay, you want to look at it like that, fine. But when we talk about Amr, the Amr belongs to Allah. And we're seeing that in the Arabic text now, not in our street text. Obey me because I'm over you. I have power over you. I have force over you. No. We're talking bigger than that now. Yes. So we know we know that Amr comes from Allah. Now, let's see. We've done enough. Ibn Arabi. Let's go through Ibn Arabi, but I'm going to try not to elaborate. It's a lot. I'll show you Ibn Arabi without elaborating. Hopefully I can strain myself. He says, again, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ma'ashara al-jinni wal-insi. He's going to comment on this part until we get to the next part. Then he'll comment on this part. And then we get to the next part. He'll comment on this part. And then we get to the last part. He'll comment on this part. So what he's going to say here is going to be in reference to here. What's in here. So he's going to say, I al-batiniyina wal-zahiriyina. So he's saying the hidden, we say the hidden, the internal, the hidden, and we can say the apparent. We can say the inner when we're talking about the jinn and the men. We can talk about the inner in terms of man, his inner self, and we could be talking about his outer self when we're talking about in the verse. The inner self and the outer self of men and jinn. The inner beings and the outer beings, the apparent, the ones you see, manifested beings. Yes. Then he's saying to both of them, if you're able to penetrate from the outermost regions of the heavens and the earth, the outermost and the innermost. Because we're talking the outer, the inner, and the outer of man. Now this is Ibn Arabi. We're in the realm of what I'm calling now the religious philosopher. He's giving you a little more than just the meaning of jinn and ins. Now he's giving you meaning, and his meaning is more philosophical than what Ibn Kathir would give you. So let's look and see what he gives us of this part. We didn't do this part with the others. So let's take a look at Ibn Arabi as compared to the type of person he is, mine, then Ibn Kathir or King Fahd. He says, when it says, in testatum and tanfudu min aqtari as-samawati wal ard, he says, bit tajarrudi. bit tajarrudi. And tajarrudi, we would say, is the freedom, having the freedom from hayati al-jasmaniyati, of bodily or material forms. So we're talking about if you're able to penetrate, but here we're talking about the inner and the outer. With the freedom, being free from the bodily or material forms and the ta'allukati, well, badaniyati, and the bodily attachments. Now, I'm just going to give a hint to this. He's a philosopher. So now, we're not talking about going out into space. We're not talking about, let's talk about the inner now. We talked about the outer, the inner. We're talking about when we talk about the samawad now and the outer, we're talking about the inner, going into the inner of the man's spirituality, going into the inner of man's materiality, the inner now. For example, we're talking about the being free spiritually from the laws and the pull. Just like you have the gravitational pull of the earth, you have the gravitational pull of your bodily attachments. You have the gravitational pull of material forms, mentally and spiritually speaking, that prevents you from being free spiritually to go to higher regions, spiritually speaking. This is Ibn Arabi. I'm trying to give it to you simple without a lot of explanation, because this opens up a science within itself, a long talk. Maybe we'll do it during the Ramadan session. So just what he's saying here. An example, if you look at the earth, and the earth would be the material, and that samawat would be the spiritual. Just from the material forms, the material forms will prevent you from escaping to enter into the spiritual forms. The earth, the laws that's governing the earth may prevent you from penetrating the skies. It's the earth that's holding you back. That's one idea. Now let's look at the earth in the inner sense. Man's inner sense is that you can penetrate the material world in terms of knowledge, which I think we're going to get to. Yes. Knowledge like molecules. See, now we're penetrating the earth in terms of studying the molecules that brings about the material forms. Yes. We're studying the body, the connections, the attachments and connections of the body, the associations of the body in terms of its hidden knowledge that's of bodily form. These two that are still operating as a hukm of Allah, the laws governing Allah. Yes. How far can we penetrate? So we penetrate the molecules. We find there's the atoms. We're going to penetrate the atom. There's electrons and protons. We're going to penetrate the electron. We're going to continue to penetrate. We're talking the inner. Penetrating. Not boring a hole through the earth and coming out on the other side. We're talking about penetrating in knowledge now. And we're going to penetrate in terms of man's bodily, physical body, we penetrate. Like we go to the physician who studies the body. And all the laws that's governing all of the parts of the body. We're penetrating the earth. I hope you understand what I'm saying now. With the cell structure. We find out that certain part of the body is made up of cells. We're going to penetrate the cell and see how the cells function, the laws. There are laws governing this kind of penetration. Yes. Fanfudu, if you can penetrate the spirituality of man and the physicality of man in terms of his bodily and his physical forms, then penetrate. That says a lot to the biologists. Now here you have the astronomer and reading this verse, and you have the biologist reading this verse. You have the philosopher reading this verse. Yes, a philosopher like Ibn Arabi reading the verse. How far can you go to the extreme, to the outermost, even though we're talking inner, we're talking outer, the outermost of man's spirituality. Li tanharitu fi suluki an-nufusi al-malakiyati. This expression here is saying to the place of spiritual and mental. Spiritual and mental, when we say tan kharitu fisuluki, to the place escaping, to the place of spiritual or mental governing souls, governing self, the governing souls, to the place of Hashara. Let's go back and connect it with Hashara, where these angelic souls are now gathering. We're talking about man's spirituality. That these angelic souls govern in layers of 7. As you go from one layer to another. Well, arwahi and spirits. Jabrutiya, these strong spirits. Yes, laws. The same as you have laws governing the outer world, the material skies we talked about, you have the same kind of corresponding laws governing in man's spirituality, mental and spiritual governing. And how are you able to penetrate these spiritual forces? وَتَصِلُوا إِلَى الْحُضْرَةِ الْإِلْهِيَّةِ. Hadarati or Hudrati el-Ilhiyati, the divine presence, that you connect with the divine presence. You see, this is Ibn Arabi now. This is how he's talking. He's talking about man and man's mental and spiritual makeup. That mentally or spiritually, you come in contact with the divine and the divine presence. This is where some people, they'll say, well, that's shirk. To come in contact with the divine or come and connect with the divine presence, that's shirk. That's not shirk if you understand him. When you come in contact and knowledge with the he's going to show you here with the attributes, and you elevate it in knowledge, which he's going to show you, that you can penetrate to come into this divine, but you don't see Allah's face. Like they say, Muhammad the Prophet, he saw Allah. He did not see Allah. But you sense the true divine presence of Allah. Yes, the human being can sense Allah's divine presence right here on earth, in this life. Yes, this is more philosophical. And many, the common people, may not be ready for this kind of philosophical thinking, so they'll say, Ibn Arabi, he's committing shirk. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So they put the bad word out on him. Now you see, Ibn Kathir, we can stomach Ibn Kathir, mentally speaking. But Ibn Arabi, what is he talking about here? And I'm giving it in a light sense of Ibn Arabi. He says, La tanfuzuna illa bi sultan. You can't do that without authority, except with the authority. And now he's going to talk, what is the authority? He's going to comment on the authority. Here he's talking about penetrating. Right? Here he's talking about penetrating except by authority. Bihujjatin bayinatin. We had this word before. Bihujjatin. So it's going to be clear authority. You have to have clear authority in your studies, let's say. I'm giving an example. In your studies, in your reflection, there has to be a clear authority in that. You just can't sit and say, yes, like we want to be deep and heavy and philosophical. No. To reach these high stations, spiritually speaking, and get beyond and penetrate the strong spiritual and mental governing forces in your spiritual makeup. Yes, they're strong, because some of you can't handle it right now. You're not spiritually prepared to handle what I'm saying right now. You're not spiritually prepared to reflect on what I'm saying now. It takes strength. It takes study. It takes knowledge. And he's saying it takes authority. You can't write a Quran better than what has been revealed to Muhammad the Prophet, because you have not been given the mental or spiritual authority based upon the hukmullah, based upon the governance laws of Allah, spiritually and mentally, and all that it takes, spiritually and mentally, to write a book that's better than the Quran. It takes great power and authority, and it has to come from Allah. If not, Allah challenges, then do it without the help of Allah. Yes. And do it with someone that's like him. Someone who didn't go to the school. Someone didn't go to the university. Someone who didn't read books. Do it with someone like him and write one of the best, the top, not one of, the best literature written on the face of the earth from any and all languages. Yes. You see? You need sultan. We're talking the inner now. The inner person. Sultan. So, okay, you can't match the Quran. What's next? What comes before the Quran? Whatever it is on that level of spirituality, you still need sultan. Okay, what about the next heaven? That's the highest heaven. The next is 7 of them. Penetrate, you have to penetrate 7. And there are laws in penetrating the 7 spiritualities of man. We're just talking curiosity right now. And we're getting it from Ibn Arabi. Now he's telling us what the clear authorities are. He's going to give us this from Ibn Arabi. He's saying, Hiya et Tawheed. That's the first step. Hiya et Tawheed. Tawheed, not just believing that Allah is one. That's not the Tawheed. We're talking science. We're talking spiritual science. That in the material, in the inner, and in the manifested, we talked about, there is the Tawheed. That all material things that we see, things that are manifested, all have a connection that brings about the idea of oneness. Nothing is outside of the other in terms of its created form. That's the Tawheed. On the material level, then there's the Tawheed on the spiritual level. If you don't get it in man, on those 2 levels, you won't come to the conclusion of Allah being one. No. Because if you could find 2 separate creations that are not, and I've said it before, so we reiterate to learn, that are not, that have no properties of anything else, then we would come to the conclusion, mentally, spiritually, we would come to the conclusion there must be 2 gods, because there are 2, we have found 2 creations. And they have no relationship. One has no relationship with the other. No. It's not in the hukm, it's not in the hukm of Allah. Now, you can't go out beyond physically the skies without the concept of Tawheed. You cannot build an instrument, a device that would take you way out beyond our imagination in the skies without that device having some relationship with the laws out there because of Tawheed. And anything that we find out there has a connection with what we have right here on earth because of Tawheed. You're not going anywhere without understanding the concept of Tawheed. You're not going anywhere in knowledge without understanding the concept of Tawheed. In creation, what tajreed, you have to have the concept of abstraction. I'm going to use that term here. Abstraction. That every material law that we see functioning in the material world, we have it in the abstract. I'm going to say that much. This gives you the mental abstraction, gives you the steps towards mental and spiritual freedom to escape the boundaries of the bodily or material pull that it has on your mind. وَتَفْرِيدِ بِالْعِلْمِ. No, وَهِيَ التَّوْحِيدُ وَالتَّجْرِيدُ وَالتَّفْرِيدُ. I want to read it grammatically correct. بِالْعِلْمِ. وَالْعَمَلِ. Yes. And the tafreed is that in order to attain the tawheed, let's say, in order to attain abstraction, you have to learn tafreed. You have to learn how to isolate. Isolate, we're going to say, oneself to the spiritual studies and knowledge. That means, and in your actions, the influences that will hold you down, hold you back, you have to learn to isolate yourself, free yourself to free yourselves from those, especially when we're talking about spiritual knowledge and study. We have ilm and the sciences, spiritual sciences, and the work and actions of that knowledge and science, tafreed. Even though you have tawheed, the unification, you have to have tafreed, the isolation. There's a lot to be said from this. I'm giving the ideas. Well, fina'u fillahi. And what's finā is that you have to come to the place, the high place, spiritually speaking, where all things created are no longer existing in your mind mentally, because you're in the place of abstracts. And once you're in the place of abstract, the mental, those physical things, those physical thinking, physical laws, they all drop off. It's like you're going out in space. There's a part of the device that's going to drop off. So what's going to drop off? The material, seeing things in its material form is going to drop off. That you begin to witness things in its spiritual, abstract forms. And in that high station of spirituality, you come into a divine presence. That, as the Quran says, the only thing that remains is his face, is his being. Not that you come in the company of Allah himself, but then you begin, in your heart, you begin to sense his being, a high spiritual place. Yes, I hope you understand what I'm saying. This is Ibn Arabi on the verse. You see a difference between Ibn Arabi and Ibn Kathir. Yes. So there are steps. There are steps in the spirituality of penetrating the heavens and the earth. I thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.